Hello, and thank you for joining me today as we explore a few thoughts from the Bible together. On Friday last week in that video, I talked about a couple that I read of in Luke chapter 1, Zachariah and Elizabeth. This old couple had greatly desired a child, and God miraculously answered them. He heard their prayers, He saw their heart's desire, and He responded. But even so, there was a little bit of doubt there. Zachariah went back to the angel Gabriel with how can I be sure of this? I'm an old man and my wife is well along in years. I like how diplomatically he puts that. I'm sure his wife would be happier with well along in years than, yeah, she's an old woman too. But, it had to be a miracle. There was no physical, practical way for that pregnancy to come about. Zachariah and Elizabeth were just too old. But there's another miraculous pregnancy that we read about in the very same chapter of Luke. Mary, a young woman this time, not married, is also told that she's going to have a baby. And once again, her reaction is a little bit of a stupefied, how will this be, since I am a virgin? You are talking about something that is absolutely impossible here, Mr. Angel. There is no physical way that this can happen. Well, the angel answers Mary by explaining what God is already doing with Elizabeth, how she is going to have a child in her old age in 3 months' time. And he goes on to say, this angel, for no word from God will ever fail. No word from God will ever fail. What an amazing promise that is. No matter how hard something may seem, no matter how impossible it may look, if God has said it's going to happen, then it is going to happen. There is nothing more powerful than God and the words that He speaks to us. What He has promised, He will do. It is as simple as that. Now, Mary had a much calmer reaction to all of this than I think I might have had if I was in her shoes. But I also think that it must have been a huge reassurance to her to be able to go and visit Elizabeth, as we know that she did, and to see, well, yes, this barren old woman is in fact 6 months pregnant. I guess God really can do the impossible. It's a real reassurance to us today to be able to look at the lives of other people, to see how God has moved in them, to see the amazing things that He has done, to see how He has worked the impossible. God, He knows us pretty well. He knows that we have a bit of a tendency to, maybe overthink things or to doubt a little bit. He could have had Mary get pregnant before Elizabeth. He could have had those miraculous events exactly coincide. But instead, He gives Elizabeth this little bit of a head start as an amazing display of proof to Mary that there is nothing outside of His control. And I think that He does the same thing for us. When there is something utterly impossible that we are hoping for, praying for, believing in, have heard God speak about, then I find that there often are people around us that we can look at and find encouragement in, because God has worked for them too, and God has done the impossible in their lives as well. And that can encourage us to keep the faith, to keep believing, to keep pressing on, knowing that even though it seems impossible, God can do it. When my husband Dave and I first started inquiring about becoming missionaries, we found out that one of the first things that we would need to do was to raise a quite significant amount of money each year to be able to send us and to keep us here on the mission field. And at first, that sum of money It just seemed utterly and completely impossible, especially as we wanted to get here to Uganda quickly. But there were two things that really, really encouraged us at that time. Firstly, God had told us to do this. And therefore, if his word wasn't going to fail, then he was going to have to provide. But secondly, we spoke to people who had walked on this path before us and who talked about how absolutely amazing it was watching that seemingly impossible sum of money come in and get them to where they needed to go. Those things together helped us to activate our faith, to trust that God would come through for us. And he did, thanks to the incredible generosity of individuals and churches and other groups. We raised that money in record time. See, where there seems to be no way forward, when things look utterly impossible, it is good to hang on to that knowledge that no word from God will ever fail, but also to remind ourselves of the amazing works that he has done before, be they for us or for other people. It's good to remind ourselves of when God has done the impossible for his people, because if he has done it before, he can do it again. When Mary arrives at Elizabeth's house, one of the first things that Elizabeth says to her is this: "Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her." I love that verse. Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her. Not blessed is she when she receives those promises. We are blessed not only when we receive the promise, whatever that may be, though obviously that's a very good moment, but we are blessed when we believe that the Lord will fulfill it. What an amazing challenge and encouragement that is. You don't need to wait until you receive to start receiving the blessing. All you need to do is believe, and you can start to be blessed right now in this moment in time. Believe, be encouraged, because God's word to you will not fail. Whatever you are hoping in, believing in, waiting for today, believe that God's word to you will not fail, and you can start to experience that blessing of belief right in this instant. The Lord will fulfill his promises to you. It's a guarantee. Thank you so much for joining me today for these thoughts from the Bible. I'll be back on Friday with another video, so I will see you then.